Yeah, it's a good morning to you all.
Good morning, Numan, and thank you very much for keeping your promise coming back.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very, very pleased to welcome you again in my residence, humble residence at Abziga,
Please.
but I've got a wonderful view.
Yeah, thank God.
Good morning.
Good morning once again. We're at the old bird's home. He emphasized the other time that we should call him the old bird. Indeed, the old bird is with us in its nest to communicate to the world. Prof, following the previous events, want to begin straight away. What's your take of what is happening in the country now? Because the last time we were here, when you pledged giving us every last Friday of the week to discuss yeah. So
what is happening in the country is tragic. I feel even more remorse and disappointed that should be happening under the leadership of a man I continued admiring, a man who persuaded me, and I was willing to abandon everything that I was doing at the time to serve this country. A man who came promising to do wonders for Uganda. He said he was a servant of the people. I didn't think I would live to hear him say he's no servant of anybody and he's working for himself. He has got a mission. Even in this campaign for 2002, he's saying that he has got his own mission, which means that the mission to serve Ugandans, the mission to make this country governable and well governed has been abandoned. I was very,
very...
responsibility,
it's a personal responsibility, Prof.
Pardon?
In your view, do you think it's a collective error or it's a personal error? Is it like an individual, Mr. Museveni, or with the people that he's working with as a group?
Most of the leaders in the NRM party, to which I have never belonged, because when it was founded, I was already a judge, and judges, we don't belong to parties, or we should not be. And I used to love, and I still support, the original NRM, what they call the movement. I never supported any party. When I was a youngster, I used to sympathize and support those who were UPC, but I have never belonged to it as a member. I certainly have never belonged to any other party except the movement. And that's what we founded with Museveni. I did a lot to build up the movement. I was very influential in making the 1995 Constitution. When we finished last month, when we were actually this month talking to me, I said, unless we have a leadership which will take us back to the 1995 Constitution and implement it as the people found it, we shall never have peace in Uganda. We shall never have good governance. Museveni's motto, like you and me, in one of his books, he says he doesn't know when he was born. Most of Banyankole believe he's about my age. I'm 81 now.
Wait a second, Prof. Most
Banyankole, whom I know and who know him, including the late Dr. Mwine.
Dr. Mwine, yes.
And the late father of Winnie Byanyima. I met them. And they said, Museveni's, if I am very generous, he's about 78 now, according to the information I have, including Karokola. These were the late Judge Karokola. These were Banyankole who knew him very well.
Second, Prof, does that mean that, in your view, because by the time someone lies about their age,
Mm.
does that mean, does it communicate their inconsistencies?
If we believe Banyankole, who know him, including the Byanyimas where he grew up, he ought to be 79 now, because I'm 81. Because
By simply-
talking to me, they said he's 2 years younger than you. So by the time, assuming that he wins this election, which is not on the cards, he will be in his 80s by the time that next term finishes. And even his own great admirer and supporter, John Nagenda, said after this term, he should go back to Washtura and graze cattle, because Nagenda expects another leader to take over after this term. For me, I have already written, if you read my book, The Blessings and the Joy of Who You Are, or the very latest, In the Name of God, Truth and Justice, I had already invited him to stand down and let a younger person take over. And I'm still of the same view.
Prof, taking your words, do you think the problem of Uganda is because we are being led by older people?
No.
Therefore, in your view, because we have
Age,
seen...
age, I could be president. In America, a 78-year-old has been elected to be president. Age per se has nothing to do with it. But the reason I want to send him to rest is that his policies have become a nightmare to Ugandans. Over the last 10 years, we have been misgoverned, mostly. Some good things have been done, but even worse ones. No election in Uganda, let alone anywhere, deserves, before the election, to take the lives of 30 people. It's impossible in any well-governed country. It is a nightmare when the NRM primaries took place that people should fight and die in one party, governing party.
Let me ask, Prof, you're in government, young people or whatever it may be there, and in courts, cause chaos. Would you look on?
You see, in a country where chaos occurs, it reflects the government, the administration, and the power. Do you think those people who are fighting for themselves, or they are fighting for leadership, whether theirs or those they support?
It could be a replica.
If
because
you
also-
let that happen, one of the reasons that Ugandans chose Museveni in the first place, and we supported him during the Bush and elsewhere, I never spared any time or little money I had campaigning for President Museveni. It's because of his character
at a time.
and his promise that we should have peace in Uganda. Nobody ever dreamt that in one election where he's a candidate, 30 people or more would be killed. And during his own party primary elections, there would be chaos, and more than half of the candidates would say they were cheated. NRM candidates, supporters of President Museveni, saying they were cheated. That is why change is not only necessary, but in my opinion, it is inevitable if Uganda is ever
Two things, Prof.
to be normal.
I want to take you back slightly onto two things. One is about the age. What do you think was the reason for which one would say he is not sure about when he was born, in your view?
I have already told you, age is immaterial. The reason most of us don't want Museveni to continue is the way we are governed today. He's no longer an asset to this country. He's a liability. That's number one. Number two, ever since the 60s, I know him. He lectured to us when I was a young man at Makerere, a young lecturer. You know, I started lecturing at Makerere when I was very young. So some of my students were older than me, such as the late Justice of the Supreme Court, Karokola, people like Kazvuma. I was only about 2 or 3 years older than them. He became a Deputy Chief Justice. Katurebe, he's just retired at the age of 70. So you can see we were about the same age as I was teaching them. And I was attracted by Museveni because really he was a great statesman.
Which year are we talking about now?
It must have been 1969, 70. And he was a young man. He was a guerrilla fighter. He had even gone to Mozambique. And really, we young people looked up to him. And he had great ideas. He was very brave, a potential leader as he has been. Then he told us that the problem in Uganda is the misgovernance. Misgovernance, he said that. He led us. I abandoned my academic career in the UK, came to serve Museveni and this country. I abandoned my family very young. They are there, my children. They are there. But I never brought them up because I dedicated my life to President Museveni leadership and us. He let us down. I want you to recall who are the people that have opposed him, stood against him. Mbabazi, in the name, he's the former Prime Minister. General Muntu, he's the first commanding officer. He's against him. Tumukunde, his own tribesman from Kunjiri. He's now standing. People like Luzindana, who used to admire him, is against him. He joined the FDS. So you ask yourself, is there madness in this country? There's those people who supported him most, whom he himself selected to serve in the NRM, are the ones now leading the campaign to have him retire from politics. Why Ugandans don't they think many of the things that we have done are contrary to what we agreed to do, mainly the Constitution? He had cabinet ministers, Matembe, Dr. Matembe, the late Kategaya was his personal friend from childhood. He sacked them because they opposed him to continue governing badly. We don't mind people governing if they are governing badly. What has happened? The last 2 elections, including this one, the government has run out of money. They said, my pension has not been paid. Even the pension which Parliament passed, they didn't have. I don't have, you have seen twice, I don't have guards. The police they gave me were very, very, shall I say, criminals. One of them tried to strangle me. The case has never been finished. So the former leadership of the judiciary said, let Kanyeihamba, like a few others, choose his own bodyguard and resident guard. The government has failed to give me that money, which the constitution obliges them. My terms of condition said they must give me money for
security and
for security.
but you
don't.
received your retirement package.
Hmm?
Do you receive your retirement package?
Alternative
Retirement.
not all of it. And I have a letter here, which I can read it to you, from the Permanent Secretary Judiciary, Pius Bigirimana, saying they can't pay me because there is no money. Then I have said, let it be a date. You accept that you owe me that money. He has refused to commit himself, which means that they are waiting when if ever they get money, if I'm still alive, they will give it to me, but they don't give me arrears. This is the kind of misgovernance and failure to keep promises
I want to take you back to
that I'm talking about. My good friend, he's still good, my friend, the Prime Minister of Kanyeihamba. For him, I make him as an exception. He has not failed me. But when he pleads with these people, even recently he appealed to the Permanent Secretary and told me, Pius, the Permanent Secretary, has now agreed that I am entitled to my pension, but the government has no money. And he says, and I have a letter from him, when the government facilitates us, we shall pay you. Museveni was I hope he still is my friend. I hope he's listening to
a
me.
distant friend.
And he should direct them that give Kanyeihamba his pension. How can a judge give who has served this country well or badly without facilitation? Kanyeihamba and the others told me the reason they passed the pension and increased the money for judges who have retired is because of my plight and that of former Chief Justice Wambuzi. They said they didn't want to leave them in abject poverty. That's what he said. You go and interview him, he will tell you that. But we don't receive that money. How do they want us to support them?
In your words, you say, Right Honorable Rugunda hasn't let you down as of now. Has not let you down as of now.
No, he hasn't let me down.
So presumably does that mean that there are some people, however few, that are still working with Mr. Museveni, that in your view you find them legitimate and
oh yes. One of them is Rugunda. And I believe that the Minister of Finance and the Permanent Secretary to Finance, Makanizi, are very good people, and they are doing their best to keep the law, to the Constitution, despite what orders they get from above.
In your words, when we were beginning, you talked about being persuaded. Would you want to go deep into describing to Ugandans how persuasive was the now Mr. Museveni was to you? Was it convincing you to work with him for in an exchange of, let's say, big positions, where you moved by that persuasion that because he would give you maybe fat jobs in courts, like they call them, or you had the country at heart?
Neither the country at heart. I, as a senior lecturer at a UK university, I was earning almost 10 times what I eventually got when we first came in. We were getting something, I forget, it was in thousands. So it was not the money that attracted me. It was mainly Museveni. When he first talked to us from Mozambique, he was a student at Dar es Salaam, but I think eventually he went to Mozambique to learn guerrilla tactics. That's when I got convinced that this is a potential future leader of Uganda. Principled, hard-working, not greedy, and I got converted to him at Makerere when I was a younger lecturer in 1969, 1970. I was then associated with the Debating Society of Makerere. You know, I founded, me with Professor Kakoza, the Faculty of Law at Makerere. They find it very embarrassing to remember that. But when I was there last time, the Chief Justice then, Katurebe, was the guest of honor. And he told the audience that I was one of his lecturers at Makerere, and he remembers most of the things I said. And one of the things he said, he quoted it. Kanyeihamba told us that the air, rather the law is like the air we breathe. You don't notice it all the time. But if something goes wrong with it, you immediately feel uncomfortable and I don't see it. Those are the words of the immediate former Chief Justice, Bart Katurebe. But I have told you.
You had the country at heart?
Yes.
By the time he brought you.
So what I am saying, I was attracted by the policies of the movement.
At the time?
Yes. To unite the country, not to call anybody enemies. Museveni calls his political opponents enemies. How can you ever allow somebody you know as an enemy to govern your country? That is a contradiction in terms. That's why people like Amuliet, people like Muntu are his enemies and therefore enemies of Uganda. If you are a sensible politician and generous, how can you call somebody who wants to do the work you are doing an enemy? It is a contradiction in terms. So until Museveni stops calling leaders of other political parties or those who are opposed to his policies enemies, I will not respect what he believes in. What he believes in is a negation of what is decent, reasonable, and good for Uganda.
Okay. Prof, you were persuaded because you had the country at heart. In your view, when you look around the ministers that this gentleman has,
the ministers
that Mr. Museveni has, do you think they are working with him because they have the country at heart, or you think they are, in your view, they might have some other motives?
People have mentioned, people like Rakan Lugunda, people like Matia Kasaija.
He's been mentioned. I mean, he's been mentioned in regards so many.
A few others have got the country at heart. And if you talk to them privately, their views are very good for the country. But they are not allowed to put them in practice. Because as I have told you...
Why wouldn't they walk away? Why wouldn't they walk away? Because we have seen people that have disagreed with Mr. Museveni and walked away. We have seen when General Muntu retired from the commandship of the army, he was given a ministry. In his words, he says he declined. So if you are saying that these gentlemen and a few ladies are genuine, why wouldn't they walk away and say, Mr. President, we think we are being suffocated, so there are your offices.
He's no longer alive. My good friend, he was much closer to me than anybody else, Elia Kategaya. At one time, he was first deputy prime minister. You remember that he was among those who were sacked by President Museveni because they opposed the removal of term limits. By the way, the current Chief Justice, Alfonso Doro, has said Uganda made a mistake by removing term limits. I hope he's been quoted everywhere. He's the Chief Justice of today. People say he didn't say much about age limit. And I agree, age limit has no problem. Many people, you see where we make a mistake is to think that President Museveni governs alone. I wanted to ask you something. You know he has got the Minister of Education, who
By the
is his
wife.
close relative. Do you think they could be having lunch together alone in the bedroom, and the wife says, "Darling, I am fed up of so and so," who is a minister. "Please, I feel uncomfortable with him. Why don't you sack him?" Do you think he would keep him? You people, be practical. I don't want to go further with that one. Museveni does not govern this country alone. It is governed by those who are closest to him, like his brother, like his dear wife. I don't think the son governs. He is not there. If you remember, Moses, Ken Rugaba's uncle, Salem Saleh, didn't want him to go in politics. He said, "You come and I teach you business. Leave politics alone." Why do you think he stays there? But he's not, he's quiet. He's an army officer. And I'm sure he's doing his job properly. He has not gone up like the Trumps and supported his father. I never heard what he says. His own son-in-law, who is my neighbor here, Aldrich, what is his other name? Duabogo. He is on record having written a series of articles criticizing the government. So one thing I am happy with is that the children of President Museveni, at least on record, have not followed him in governance. His wife is part of the governance. But at one time, you remember, they were not looking eye to eye in the way they were governing the country. So she has changed. You ask me, why, if they are of those opinions, why do they stay with him? Poverty. The late, I didn't finish that story.
Wait a second, Prof.
The late
Kategaya.
Yeah. So I said, you had been sacked, then you went back because he wanted you to remain there. His politics meant in Ankole that you should be kept as first deputy prime minister because of your background. Why did you go back? And he looked at me. We used to dine together quite often. And he said, Prof, first of all, do you think if Museveni wants you and you don't go back, you think you live a comfortable life? He didn't say much. I knew what he meant. Second, he said, I have a problem, a sickness. I am non-corrupt. I have never been corrupt in my life. I will die very soon unless I stay and I get money from the government, which is helping me. So there are different reasons, but not political,
I wouldn't want to cut you
why
short,
people continue supporting Museveni.
I wouldn't want to cut you short, Prof. So many citizens out there, our viewers, both national and international, I think they do not subscribe to that school of thought. Because, for example, one serves the government for the past 20 years, and they want to, in my view, to hide into being poor, to go back to their, for lack of another word, to their vomit. Because you have, I do not think that you are too rich to continue with your consistency in regards to speaking the truth to power. So how come you haven't gone back? How come you haven't been compromised?
No, I disagree with you. I want to give you a very vivid example. The same Mogherini. No, who was the leader of DP?
Yeah, Paul Kawanga,
same Mogherini. It is not that he wanted the money, or that he believed that by supporting Museveni and supporting the NRM, he was serving the country. He was genuine. I met him, I know him. He's a very principled man. So he went in because he thought his support of the then regime was in the interest of the country. But he was mistaken. Museveni had a different agenda, and eventually when he stood against him, people said, "You've been serving him for 9 years. Why do you want now to stand against him?" We know now he had a good reason for standing against him. He realized Museveni was not
As good as he had thought.
as he thought. He was not telling the truth all the time, and he felt he would be a better leader than President Museveni. That's why he stood. So there are many, many reasons which I can't go into why people either stay there or not. A former friend of mine, whom I shall not mention, stayed serving Amin for a long time. Then when he came to UK, I had already started supporting Gorilla Museveni. I said, "Why don't you join us?" He said, "The reason he's here, staying in Uganda, is because he's got some influence on Idi Amin," which was not true.
Something that is burning citizens, and I want, with due respect to your service as a justice, when does Mr. Museveni become bad, in your view? And this person is considering the fact that you were a justice, and there is a case, in their view, very controversial case, and that's Sejusa, by then Tinyefuza versus Attorney General, where you gave, in their view, a controversial ruling about when he applied or petitioned the court wanting to retire.
In my book, The Blessings and the Joy of Who You Are,
Yes.
which people like reading, I mention the word, I redefine the word controversial. Being controversial is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
In fact, anybody who is not controversial is not worth living.
Repeat that.
In where you disagree with me, you become controversial.
Where one isn't controversial.
Yes, yes. Where the president said, "I want to get a policy of this," and you disagree with him, you are controversial. Every judge is controversial because there are always two people before you. You find for one, the other one thinks you are controversial. You ruled wrongly. So nobody in this world is not controversial. Being controversial means you don't agree with the official view of what is being proposed. Otherwise, if I'm controversial, am I bad? Many Ugandans like me, including you. But they say I'm controversial.
They like the controversy in you.
So I have written somewhere
In
that
particular,
anyone who says, who expresses opinions which are not controversial has said nothing.
in your view, Prof, have you had time, in literature they call it trance, half asleep, half awake, and you think or have any regrets about one of the rulings you have made as a justice?
Yes, there is one.
May you
And
please
I have
share with
also
us?
written about it. A man from Bunyoro, I even don't know where they are now, with his son, were convicted of aggravated robbery. And the case was heard by a judge of the High Court. He convicted them and sentenced them to death. Because you know, capital robbery.
Yeah.
They went to the Court of Appeal, and it was confirmed. The conviction and the sentence. Eventually, they came to the Supreme Court.
Where they
I
filed
was
for-
a member of the panel. I didn't write the lead judgment. Well, we write one judgment in criminal cases. So whoever drafted it didn't look at the facts thoroughly. But I went along with the same judgment. We confirmed
That
the
he had.
conviction and sentence. Later on, here, I read the file and I was shocked. I think we made a mistake because the other man was LC chairman. He was very, very strict with everybody. And in the village, they didn't want him. On the night they accused him with his son of having to go and rob a neighbor, when the police came, they found him in the bed, and the young man in the bed. It had been raining, and their shoes were dry. We didn't take that into account. We didn't take into account that the witnesses conspired to have him convicted. So I wrote to the president. I said, in my opinion, he should be given freedom. We had the priest who was against capital punishment, Augustine something. I gave him all the information. I said, please fight for these people that are free. I once saw the prison officer and I told him that because my conscience was not clear. Up to now, I don't know whether they were pardoned. Museveni has not been in the habit of executing people who have been convicted of capital punishment. So I am hoping, even today their relatives are listening to me, that they should be given free pardon and they may be compensated. I talked with my colleagues, including the then Chief Justice. Wow. Then they said, if we follow these things up, every case would be opened up. So once you have given your judgment, rightly or wrongly, it ends there. And I am very, very unhappy about that. I very hope that they are still alive, that they are presumably in prison, and that the president should, even now, exercise the prerogative of mercy and let them free.
On that very note, what I am personally picking is that I cannot authoritatively tell what leads to that, but to also think and also confirm, in my view, that there could be so many people in there that have been convicted innocently. Do you agree?
I agree. We are human. We make mistakes. There's one time when I went to America and I met a man who was a spitting image of my former teacher in Busoga. And I greeted him in Uganda. He said, what are you talking about, man? Gibberish. He proved to me that he has nothing to do with Uganda. He never been here in Uganda. He was simply resembled my former teacher in Busoga. We make mistakes. We are not angels. We are not humans. I couldn't swear that we hadn't made mistakes. We make. The problem is, that's why I'm always fighting for my rights, that those who think that the mistakes were made, they were wrongly convicted, they should appeal. They should continue. They should never give up. You ask Honorable Dr. Matembe. She's always fought for her right. When you read her book, the first one, you think she is not going to be in politics anymore. But she has seen what is happening again to the country. She's going back. I hope they will elect her.
I wouldn't want also, I am now...
she's going back. She's standing as a narrow. You know,
yes. To ask you why.
She called me. I was surprised because in her writing she said I have given her politics, but she's come back because of her strong conviction that this country is being misgoverned, and that she will play a role again if she's a member of parliament.
Prof, I'm taking your words. You are human beings.
Yes.
Prone to mistakes.
Pardon?
prone to mistakes. To
Yeah,
committing
you are,
errors.
yes.
Do you think, in your view, there is a specific mistake, perhaps the unforeseen mistake when you are deciding on a matter of Sejusa versus Attorney General?
Of what?
Sejusa versus Attorney General in 1996 in regards to his retirement from the UPDF. Because he later on...
So the case?
Yes.
And actually, I am the one who gave the lead judgment to say that he
shouldn't.
should stay
In the army.
in the army. I still believe very strongly that that was right.
At the time.
Because the defense of Uganda by UPDF is more important than an army general just getting out of the army without procedure. Then anybody who are cowards or whatever, they can just leave the army on my judgment. That would be wrong. Therefore, I still feel very strongly
On that ruling.
yes, that once you agree to serve as army officer or police officer, and you are in a commission of 9 years, whatever, you either stay there, or if there are reasons why you want to leave early, they are written in the law. You can ask permission to leave.
Formally.
But you can't simply ignore
and run away.
and leave the country and defend it.
Okay, now, because you are 82,
Yes. 81.
81. In my view, we do not have, I mean, you're speaking your mind out.
Yes.
Is there any single moment, either as a minister or a justice,
Or as a justice.
yeah, or any other capacity that you have served, where you have made a decision based on Mr. Museveni's call or any other person in the army, those generals, have you made any decision based on their call? And let's say the president calls and says, George, this is, of course, you will tell by their accent, and then he tells you, please manage it or handle this file with utmost care or
No.
something.
No. I swear by Almighty God and everything I believe in,
That is true.
that
and
all the decisions I made, whether as a judge,
or minister.
I never followed somebody's,
Have there been
except one. Justice Mlenga, and I write about it. The late Justice Mlenga was my close friend, both in and outside the judiciary. During the hearing of the first petition,
2001?
2001,
presidential petition?
BCJ was represented by some lawyers
In Juba
who
and
were
others was
not,
naked.
none other people thought they were very good, but they were not very good. They thought they would teach us the law instead of telling us the facts. What happened there in the elections, what happened in Rukunjiri, what happened there. So I was not impressed at the beginning. And I had decided, lazily, that I would dismiss the petition. Then one night, and I have written about it, Justice Mulenga, who was my colleague at the Supreme Court, called me, said, George, the other day you were talking, when you were having coffee, that for you are not convinced by Shiza Besij's lawyers that you are going to dismiss the petition. He said, history will never forgive us.
If you just dismiss
He
it.
said, have you read this? Have you read this report? Have you read this case? And so I felt bothered. I came here after supper. I read what he told me. The evidence, the case I hadn't read, I said, my God, I nearly made a mistake. So then, by the evidence he showed me, I decided to dismiss, rather to allow
The
the
petition.
petition.
Okay.
On the evidence Justice Mulenga gave me. I had been lazy, I hadn't read it. So the following morning I told David, but I said, I have changed my mind. Justice
Hearing this.
Mulenga gave me rather guided me on the proper evidence, And on that evidence, I have changed my mind. I am going to allow Jesus' petition is right. Neither he nor Museveni has convinced me that they won fairly this election. So we should repeat it. We were 5 of us who decided we were going to allow the petition. We were meeting regularly to consider. Remember, it took us a month. Then, the other week, the late Justice Karokola said he had changed his mind. He said, can we guarantee that if we rule against the NRM and Museveni, that the army will not take over? Can we guarantee that they want to repeat the same mistakes? We said, no, those are political matters. For us, we have to consider the law. So, at that time, he convinced me that he was changing to dismiss, rather he was going to dismiss the petition
For fear.
because of for fear the government might take over, whatever. And this is true. So we respected him. We stayed for
Determined
to allow, on the day of giving judgment, I have never forgotten. We were to give judgment at 10 o'clock. We discussed again. The then Chief Justice, and he's alive, Odochi.
Yes, Benjamin.
He said, we are allowing this petition, and I am writing this formula that by a majority of 4 to 3, remember we are 7, we allowed the petition. Then we had a coffee. Things happen. Then Chief just said, let's sit again. Somebody may have changed their mind.
Okay.
So we sat again. On the same day that we were going to give judgment.
They began stammering.
Then he said, let us repeat what we are doing. They asked the eldest first. The seniorest. Seniorest at the time was Sekoko.
Yeah.
Sekoko, he said, allow the petition. The next, actually, no, the first one was Odell. The late Odell. Both are dead, actually. Actually, the judiciary, we have fared very badly. Most of my colleagues who we sat that judgment are no longer with us. They are all gone. So they first asked Odell, he said, allow the petition. Next one was Sekoko, said, allow the petition. The next one was Karokola. Because of what I have told you, he changed his mind. He said, dismiss. Dismiss the
For fear of.
The next one was Mulenga. For all of us, we thought he would say, allow. Because remember, he was allowed. He said, dismiss. Everybody, including, except the Chief Justice, was shocked. So I said, brother, you are the one who convinced me to allow this petition. Now you are saying you are not going to allow. I said, what? It is in my book, The Blessings and the Joy of Who You Are.
Yeah.
He said, George, I am sorry. I took you down the garden path and I have left you there. It's my friend. We were shocked. So the chief just said, now the formula will change. By a majority of 4 to 3, we are dismissing the petition. We went in. The others didn't read the judgment. I insisted I would read mine. If you remember history, I'm the only one who read my judgment. And what I read has been reproduced in the blessings and the joy of who you are. And you will see what I said.
On that note, a few things like the take home. First of all, this means there are so many justices in this country, be it even the previous petition, that they make the decisions out of that shadow of fear, even when they are not called. Because you see, but as per your words.
So let me tell you, later on it transpired that the senior movement party leaders had discussions with those people. Because later, if you read, Justice Mulenga and Justice Karokola said they had made a mistake.
Good.
That's one thing. Secondly, I am sorry he is dead, therefore it's my word, but you believe it or not. Justice Karokola came here to see me with his daughter. They wanted us to buy some land from me. Then I said, but my brother, what happened? We were all together. Why did you change suddenly? Then he looked at me and said, Prof, do you know where I come from? I said, yes. Do you think I would have voted against Museveni and lived? I never said anything else.
Okay, we're going into a health break for just seconds. We come back and then go through what's happening and what you think should be done for this great pearl. Thank you, all our viewers.
The Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
This is a time where there's a lot of violence. For example, police brutality. A lot of you are being beaten up, the voters, the people from the opposing side. So election is just that period where we get free money.
An election is a process through which people choose to vote a person or a group of people to hold an office of leadership.
Did you know that you have the power to determine on who leads you?
Did you know that your vote has the power to change your society and the country at large?
Dear citizens, please vote wisely. Don't vote money, but vote issues.
Dear parents, I can't make any decision.
Your choice determines my future.
Fellow students, exercise your right. Go and vote.
Abafumbira mwese muzaze tugende tutera akaruru.
Abanyayuganda mwena mugende mutera akaruru.
Bashange face face yihule kucha hodole.
Abantu nyana mujje tugende tukome.
Genda oronde.
Your vote.
My vote. Our vote
is our present and our future.
The world is at a critical moment of providing innovative alternatives as a means to create change.
As such, we have created a not-for-profit alternative mobile digital platform as a way to promote space for freedom of speech and expression to the unheard voices.
We know you believe in the cause and you can further it more by contributing to its sustainability in forms of internet data, fuel, and any other support you deem relevant.
Please support us with your contribution to Equity Bank account number 103-5201-607252 under the name Alternative Digital, or our mobile money numbers 0702 900076 or 0783 047785. Alternative Digital, real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Great. Thanks for watching. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. It's a mighty drive. We are at the old bird's home. The one and only Prof. Retired Justice Prof. George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Thanks all of you guys for watching. Whoever is watching us live on our social media page, the Alternative Uganda. Our pledge is to always be with you from Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 9. We bring you prominent people to discuss Uganda and the world at large. Prof, before we went for a healthy break, there were some questions that I had wanted to ask you.
Yes.
And one of these tough questions is on whether you'll even be able enough and confident enough to share. But in any case, you have seen a lot, so there is nothing that worries you anymore.
No,
You have been blocked.
nothing has ever been even before.
Okay.
That's why they called me the outspoken judge.
The controversial one.
And controversial.
Great.
And when they say those words, I feel very happy.
They
because
tremble.
if we are not controversial, what we are saying is nothing.
Oh, how I wish
It's
I
not
could.
of importance.
Okay, I'll ask all of you people to
So
also
you
become
ask any
controversial.
questions you want.
You have been blocked. We have heard and read that one, yes, you were blocked from being a president of African.
Of the African Court of Human Rights.
Yes. You were blocked from being a chief justice in Seychelles.
Yes.
You were blocked from being the Makerere
Vice Chancellor.
Vice Chancellor Makerere, and so many other International Court of Justice.
That's why.
What brings about? Is it because the president did not have trust in your service, or because
With,
you were
with
controversial?
regard to being the Vice Chancellor of Makerere.
Which year are we talking about when it comes to vice chancellorship?
I was then a minister of commerce. So that must have been between 1997.
Maybe he was preparing you for bigger offices.
1986 and the following year. Because I had just been a minister, I was then a minister of commerce. The president didn't block me. He's actually the one who nominated me with the then Minister of Education, Kanyeihamba, to be temporary
Vice Chancellor.
and sort out Makerere. It was in chaos then.
Has it been
The
there?
people who refused me were the inner circle who governed Makerere. They said it was controversial, and they wanted somebody they could give orders to, not the one who just obeyed their orders. They were very influential in politics. So the president succumbed to their wishes that I should not become
Dear Chancellor.
Vice Chancellor. But he is the one,
Who had nominated
together with Kanyeihamba, who had nominated me.
Someone-
So
someone-
I wanted to be on his side, that in this case he never interfered.
A second, Prof.
Mhm.
We have seen the president nominate even when he knows that someone will not go through, but he just uses it as an excuse to let them believe that he didn't have a hand. We have seen him send Haji Nadudi into parliament, or even the late Nasa Sebagada, and he subjects them to the committee even when at heart he knows that they will not qualify. Don't you think he might have nominated you but also went back behind the curtains?
No. In my case, he was genuine. He came and told me how long I would be. I was submitted my name to those people. So he was genuine. In my case, that one,
That in particular,
he had no part to do with it. Stopping me being Chief Justice of Seychelles, who had invited me when I was retiring, That was not him.
Which forces this time, in your view?
Hmm?
Which forces, in your view, that blocked you from being the Chief Justice?
No,
of
this is not a secret. It was, again, my former student, Eric Alhanga, who I didn't know that time, I could have approached him, was the counsel for Seychelles. I was nominated by the Law Council of Seychelles, said, Kanyeihamba has been a judge in the Supreme Court of Uganda. He's retiring. We like his style. He will sort out our judiciary. Let us appoint him for 5 years. In retirement, he sorts out. The Attorney General of Seychelles wrote to me. He said, the cabinet has approved that he will become our Chief Justice. I didn't know at the time that Eric Alhanga
was the consul here.
Was the consul. So naturally they consulted him. This is I knew later. And you know Ugandans are very, very interesting. He invited me as chief guest, Alhanga. He was then chairman of an NGO which was seeing the work of MPs.
Oh, scorecard.
The first one, he invited me to go as guest of honor.
That's around 2008 or thereabout.
That's right. And he introduced me as his former professor, very brilliant, and so forth. Then, I never heard from Seychelles. They were supposed to send me a ticket, give me, I was going there for 5 years, give my family to come there and so forth. All that was arranged. Then the time came, they didn't. Then the Attorney General of Seychelles called me. He didn't mention the council. He said, Uganda forces said, you are very controversial and we should not make you Chief Justice of Seychelles. I said, which forces? He said, I'm not at liberty to give. Then let me tell you, God works in mysterious ways. Then Eric Alhanga invites me as chief guest on launching of that, what do you call it?
Scorecard.
Scorecard.
I attended that function. That one I'm sure.
He said two things which were controversial. One, when we were in a Constituent Assembly, he's among those who supported me to be chairman of the legal drafting committee. But behind my back, he was campaigning to be the chairman.
Oh.
So he said, Kanyeihamba, don't campaign. Your students in CA, there are quite a number of lawyers, have decided you should be acclaimed chairman of the commission. But he was campaigning also to be the one. That he's a more proper movement person, he's closer to President Museveni.
There was more movement than
Yes. I didn't know that. For me, I didn't campaign because I knew they were doing the work. So when the votes came out, he had convinced a majority to vote him chairman. The conference refused. He said, no, we want Kanyeihamba. They said, we don't know what has happened. Then they said, but you were we thought you were campaigning for him as his former student, but now how do you become one of the candidates to get more votes? Now he saw the writing, so he said, I withdraw for Kanyeihamba. That's why I was declared the chairman of the legal drafting committee by acclamation. Now, having said that, on that meeting, he praised me, and that's why I'm chief guest and so forth. We had a break. He gave me tea. Then I said, you know, Seychelles had called me to be Chief Justice of their country after retiring from here for 5 years. but I haven't heard from them. I don't know. He said, I don't know why. I am their counsel. They have not consulted me. Then I said, I wish I had known you were their counsel. I would have approached you, you would have supported me, and so forth. Although they are inviting me. Then, news item came. I said, he's a friend of mine. Even now, he's the only one judge that I'm close to, Ngonda Ntende. It was announced that he had become Chief Justice of Seychelles. Then they interviewed the consul. He said, we understand you are the one who recommended Ntende.
Yeah.
He said, yes, you have. They had chosen a controversial judge.
Oh.
And they didn't want Uganda to be embarrassed. That's why I wanted him to be replaced by Ntende. That's how I knew. Otherwise, I would never know.
That force that the
Yes,
region
yes. So God works in mysterious ways. The truth cannot be hid. You can hide the truth sometime, but you can never hide it forever.
Okay.
But now,
International Court of
for me, I
Justice.
don't have grudges against them.
International Court of Justice.
I bank with the bank which is the chairman of the bank, and I am a banker there. And I'm happy he's running that bank very well.
In regards to the International Court of Justice.
Pardon?
International Court of Justice.
Yes.
You're blocked again.
I was blocked. The first of all, let's start with the African Court of Justice and Human Rights. When the court was created, I was already a judge of the Supreme Court. So the Chief Justice, Odochi, and others said I was the right person to represent East Africa on that court. And the terms, I have written about it also. You are elected first. In the first election, you either had 2 years, or 4 years, or 6 years, renewable. Now, finally, you'll find out the machinery for electing judges was controlled by somebody from Burundi who was French speaking. He manipulated the system, actually it was manipulation, in such a way that those of us who came from English speaking, Ghana, South Africa, Uganda, got only 2 years, each of us. Others got 4 years, but each would be renewed 6 years later, 6 years. So even I, although I got 2 years, it would be renewed and I get 6 years, after 2 years. Then, those from Rwanda, from from Mali, got 6 years maximum. Rwanda, they didn't manipulate it themselves. The man who came there, a French speaking, wanted the French speaking to have 6 years first, then renewable, another 6 years, so they would have 12 years. He wanted the Anglophone, except one, to have 2 years, then it would be renewed for another 6 years, so we would only have 8. And that's what happened. Then, the first one whom I campaigned for to be the president of the court was Niyengoke of Burundi. Even one time came and visited me and stayed here with his wife. He was a good man. He convinced the others that after the 2 years, and when his term ends, I should become the president of the court, representing the Anglophone speakers. So I was going to be the president. When my term ended for 2 years, I went to see the ministry to renew my term. Kutesa, a former student of mine, had already decided that I should not stay there because I allowed the petition of Chisavesiji.
Oh, yes.
He had not, the Museveni was not concerned about that, but he had also convinced the Prime Minister, what is his name? Mbabazi, that they should not renew my term at the Supreme Court. All this came later. I didn't know at this time. So, he didn't see me. He said, hey, he's got another meeting. I should see his permanent secretary. So I went to see his permanent secretary in Foreign Affairs, who told me, Professor, they are telling you lies. They no longer want to support you. If I were you, I should go and see Mbabazi, and you see my boss, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I didn't see
Mbabazi or...
I saw Mbabazi.
Didn't see Kutesa.
These are politicians we have who play a role I don't understand. He's a Mchiga like me.
Controversial like you also.
But when I went to see him, I went with the governor of the Bank of Uganda because they were also concerned with the Hakana Rugunda.
It was now with the Wachiga Kweterana.
Yes, Kweterana we came. We became tribal. And he said you should not come up. But actually by that time, Babazi already knew. They didn't want me to stay there. So he attended that meeting of the Wachiga, Hakana Rugunda.
You,
the governor, Bank of Uganda. So he said, let us write a letter to the president so that you stay there. We composed the letter together. Then Mutevile said, I am going to see the president tomorrow on a bank matter. I will deliver it. Mbabazi said, no, I'm seeing him earlier. Let me take it. I have never questioned the president about that. But as soon as he told me, he never received that letter. Then I was comfortable because we had a convincing body that I was a human rights lawyer and I should go back and eventually become president of the court. Then the permanent secretary, rather the acting ambassador in Addis Ababa, who happens to be the husband of Justice Amoko, called me. He said, you seem to be very comfortable, but I'm afraid the government of Uganda is not supporting your candidature to be re-elected as a judge. You know, the AU has confirmed my election. When I told Hakana Rugunda, that's why he's been a very, very good friend. He was then minister of something, Akopohez. I said, since the president ignored our letter and I'm not being nominated, somebody else is being nominated. He said, no, it can't be. We discussed this matter. It cannot be. So you go and see the Prime Minister. Say, we support you. The Prime Minister was Zimbabwe. I went there. He was a friend of mine. But also he recognized me as a good lawyer. He said, no. I have discovered they have nominated Mulenga to replace you. Mulenga is a criminal lawyer. You are the one who is a human rights. So he wrote a letter to the AU. He said, I am the Prime Minister of Uganda. This is to confirm that the government of Uganda supports Kanyeihamba for a second term after the 2 years. Ignore everything else. Let me tell you how Uganda government works. Sent a copy to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. When he saw it, he said, ignore the letter. Ignore the letter.
The prime ministers. In fact, they
Yes.
will be boss because the prime
Yes,
minister.
the government, and when they say the government, they mean themselves. Museveni, I'm sure, didn't know. We are nominating Mulenga, who supported us in the petition.
Vis-a-vis.
Yes, we don't reward people who are not very loyal to the president. So, let me tell you how Uganda works. Now, when the court heard this, I told them I'm not being nominated. They were shocked. They said, we are going to be our president. How can they, your country, you have only been 2 years here. How can they not support you? So the president of the court, Nyengoke, you can ask him, with 3 other judges of the African court, went to the delegation to where they were going to appoint to plead my case. There is a special court, a rather space for the African Court of Justice and Human Rights. They sat there. They asked the Secretary General, what are you doing here? He said, we have come to plead for Kanyeihamba to remain the judge of this court. He has drafted our rules of law, procedure. He drafted the host agreement with Tanzania, and he's supported by all the other countries, except his own country. It is very shameful. So the secretary said, the agenda. Nomination for Uganda. Justice Mulenga, Justice of the Supreme Court, referees Kutesa, Odochi, yes, it was supported by those two. Representative, very disappointed, said, the president called me, Nyengoke. I am afraid we didn't even raise an issue. When we realized the government, your government has no confidence in you anymore. Supported by the minister and the chief justice. Remember, the chief justice is the one who was encouraging me to go again. That is Uganda for you.
Okay, thanks for all our viewers of the Mighty Drive. I still remain your host, Norman Tumuhimbise, by the way, and we are at the Old Bird's home, Justice George Woodson, rather, Kanyeihamba. Because you were a draftsman, and we put it on to you that I am aware that you are aware of some of the things that, in my view, might not have been smuggled in our view. And in particular, Magara Brian from Kakumiro asks, there is Article 84, sub-article 7
of the Constitution,
about a right to call a legislator.
Yes.
And in particular, this article can only apply when we are under the movement system. Why, in your view, is it still there? Is it because Ugandan lawyers and advocates haven't bothered?
Why is it still there?
Yeah, is it because they have Ugandan activists or lawyers or even people who are pro good governance and constitutionalism haven't bothered to petition the Constitutional Court about the illegality, in particular, about this Article 84(7)?
Why does it say? I don't. The Constitution should be
that this that this article to call a legislator shall only apply under the movement system, and since then we are under the multi-party dispensation in as far as 2005 thereabout is concerned.
Don't forget that the 1995 Constitution has been mutilated by the NRM party. And many of the things we put there were either removed or redrafted. So that one was not there before. They even in 2005, when I was no longer a member of the legislature, because I was a judge by then, they made it impossible for the constituency to recall. The majority is so big that nobody can ruralize it. So they made it inapplicable in practice. So don't ask me about the provisions. They all have been changed. For example, in one of the amendments, they changed the style and the powers of the Kabaka and other traditional rulers. But the Constitution of 1995 said that should be governed by custom of the region, and therefore Parliament has no power to change or make provision for Kabaka or for others which are governed by tradition. That one they put in. It is in the Constitution. I wrote an article saying it is a constitution that builds in a constitution. They let it go. So you are right that many of the provisions of the Constitution as amended are futile, they are not practical, and others offend against the principles we believed in.
Okay, Prof, there is some questions here, comments as well. Twase Ben Patrick states, a one Twase Ben Patrick says, Prof, I remember section 211 spells out clearly the functions of Uganda Police to protect lives and property. B, to preserve law and order, to prevent and detect crime, to cooperate with the civilian authorities and other security organs established under this constitution, and with the population generally. Can he clarify more functions? Because they now took the functions of the judiciary and they judge cases without court. I think
he's right. You see, again, everything that we put in the Constitution, on which all Ugandans agreed as a whole, of which the President Museveni said, I will go in the bush once more if anyone attempts to to change this Constitution, which has been made by all Ugandans. It's the best Constitution. Little do we know that he would be the first one to do changing.
So if it's about the bush war, he would be against himself.
Absolutely. What he did, what he has done to the Constitution, those who went with him, is treasonable against the Constitution of Uganda. But having said that, they changed everything. Only in this term, recently, he nominated Chief Justice Alfonso Dole. He nominated the former DPP, Butera, Richard Butera, as Deputy Chief Justice. He has no powers under the 1995 Constitution to nominate anybody of the judiciary. They have to be nominated by the Judicial Service Commission. You ask them. Only last week it was Tuesday newspaper that he admitted, the government admitted, that they appointed the Deputy Chief Justice without knowledge or recommendation of the Judicial Service Commission. But he stays working. So, I write, my book is coming soon, called Evolution of Public Law, Constitutional Law in Uganda. And I'm saying the Uganda Constitution has been rendered as opinions only. They select and they choose which one should be implemented and which should not. It no longer have the sanctity of a constitution as we know it. They have rendered it just like an ordinary opinion, not even a law, just an opinion.
Okay, Israel Amanyire asks that, Prof, inform us about the laws of police and the army in case of attacks from civilians.
In the case of what?
Attacks from civilians. I think they are trying to draw.
No,
comparison
it is
with what happened.
specific in the Constitution, especially in relation to UPDF. UPDF shall be subordinate to civil authority. Means that if UPC is operating in Jinja, the chairman of the council and the council have authority over them. We never put this to the in relation to the police because we assumed nobody would ever change and make the police disobey civil authority. In the UK, some of the provisions of the constitution follow that one. The police are under the authority and the power of local government. So we put it there the same way. But we were aware of the power of the army and how it disobeys and obeys the president. So we made it sure, it is in black and white. The army shall be subordinate to civil authority.
Which hasn't
They
happened.
ignored that.
Okay, Mukonyezi Aboki Wilfred. Prof, how can Ugandans use the law to extend justice to those who lost their dear ones during the riots recently, as you saw people being shot and that's what he asks. What do you think?
I have never minced the words that I support change of government and the restoration of the 1995 Constitution. Because those asking questions are adults. They must have been happy and around when we made that Constitution. That Constitution provides for everything decent, legal, and valid. So unless we go back to the 1995 Constitution, unless there is a change of government in Uganda, everything those questions are asking, all of you, we are being just academic and evasive. So, Museveni will hear me. He will be unhappy. You say Kanyeihamba teaches this country the right thing, but he spoils my politics. So I want to spoil them again. I want to agree with John Nagenda, and he will not be happy for me that I have quoted him. That is time our president we love, who has done so much for this country, it is long overdue that he stopped being president and become a statesman in retirement like me. People will recall I have been giving opinions in the Monitor, in New Vision, on NBS permanently. The NBS said, Simon Kagwanjala said, you will be appearing once every month. My column, The Land View, used to appear in Monitor every Sunday for the last 10 years. They renewed my contract recently. But I want you to ask Jamdot, who was my editor, what happened? Because Kanyeihamba still sends articles. Because they have decided, presumably, that at the age of 80, I am no longer going to say anything whatsoever. But most likely, they have been intimidated politically. That Kanyeihamba calls a spade, and therefore we no longer want to publish him or to interview him. I asked you last time, next time you see me, because you have told me I'm always coming every this is often, I will ask you, have you seen Simon Kagwa? Have you seen the editor of the Sunday Opinions, whom ask Derek. There's a man called Derek Chiyonga. He used to come here often. If I want him to answer my phone, rather to answer me, call him, I must use somebody's phone. That's when I get him. Otherwise, he doesn't answer mine.
Okay, Prof. Now.
So what I am saying is this.
Yeah.
All these questions will be answered satisfactorily if Uganda obeys, rather respects my opinion, which is shared by many people. This opinion that we must have change now in this election is shared by many elder people who supported President Museveni during the Bush War. They include many people, I don't want to embarrass them, including his ministers, some of them. Not Rakana Rugunda. I don't want you to say, because I have said Rakana Rugunda is my friend, that he said that. He didn't. Rakana Rugunda's philosophy is mainly to keep silent on issues like that. He's a royal cadre.
Prof, it's on record, and now no doubt that the EU and so on and other observers are not coming here for to observe the elections. What does that mean, in your view, as the old bad? Because second, Prof, the really one of the those times when I was here, it was off record, but you shared with me in particular on how His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo and the team was here and shared with you lots of things about their findings.
Yes.
At the time.
Yes.
Now, more or less, all foreign
by the way,
are coming here.
To reiterate that, all the international observers came here. Dr. Sewanyana, the executive director,
Foundation for Human Rights Initiative.
He rang me that morning when the results started coming. He said, Chiza Besigye won.
That's in 2016 elections.
Yes. Then I said, where is your evidence? He said, I'm going to invite the international observers to come to your residence because you are indisposed, and they will tell you. I have written about that. They said the president didn't win. They persuaded him. You can ask the president yourself to form a national government with Chiza Besigye, who won. And initially he agreed.
Why would one that has lost form a national government with?
That's why I say you should ask him. He'll deny it. Then when he saw Ugandans were not bothered, like we are not bothered today, you are not bothered. He gave up. He said, I won. like Trump. Trump won. Don't you know that even today, he said he won, was cheated. How do they cheat you? Have fraudulent election when you are the president in charge. It's a contradiction in terms. But let me tell you more really. Here, we didn't vote. In Gaba area, Buziga, materials came very late when people had gone home. But they were on time in Karamoja. They were in time in Kisoro. But here in Kampala, where I live.
So the observers come in your home, Prof. They came
so
here.
Let me tell you.
And
why observers are not coming. You are President Museveni.
He's yours, he's your critic.
Supposing you are President Museveni. During primary elections of your own party supporters, people are killed. Every other candidate claims they were rigged out by the leadership. I want you to remember that. Then, in nomination day, Some candidates are tortured. They have their shoes, like amulet, removed. The other day, the man wanting to go on the campaign, Chagulanyi, is forced to stay in a car. Then 30 people are killed. Read an article by a journalist in yesterday's Sunday Monitor who wanted to save a child who had been shot by UPDF or by the police and died in her arms. The tears she shed. You must share her opinion. In such situation, would you call observers? Do you think Museveni is a fool? You don't call observers because they witnessed those ghastly incidents and they blame you. So you don't call supervisors. What is wrong with Ugandans? They expect this government to call observers to witness those ghastly crimes committed in the name of the government.
You have worked with Justice Byabakama as your junior, in my view.
Mm.
Do you think he's managing this this situation as the chairperson EC with all the powers or with all? Okay. Do you think he's managing his role as expected?
He's not. He's frightened like everybody. We have reached a stage where cadres, where officials of government, even constitutional people, look up to one authority and either obey what that authority says or keep conspicuously silent. And the Electoral Commission has become that. He's frightened. His role has been taken over by the police and
what do you think?
Some elements of
UPDF.
UPDF.
What do you think?
Recently, Sunday was reported. He's either a general or a lieutenant. They say, you people, are you jokers? You brought these Chagulanyis, Maos, Muntu to be presidential candidates. Do you think that we would hand the power to any of them if they won? Has that been denounced by anybody? No, because it is true.
The team hosted the spokesperson of UPDF in defense, that's Deo Akiki, and he said perhaps that was a personal opinion and they did not associate in their view. But he insisted that so as long as there is ideological bankruptcy that is exhibited by any of the presidential candidates, and even if I'm getting him right, that such a person becomes president, so as long as has ideological bankruptcy, they would not look on as such a person takes power. Those were some of the words.
Where does it say in the Constitution that it is the chief of the army who determines the morals of Uganda and who determines who governs us or not? Article 1 of the 1995 Constitution, that's why I say we should go back to it, says power belongs to the people of Uganda, and they shall exercise that power through free and fair elections or referenda. It doesn't say UPDF will do the necessary. But the Constitution goes further to tell the army commander that the UPDF is under the civilian people of Uganda. That is why the views and expressions of candidate Chagulanyi are very attractive because he speaks in the name of the people. I recently heard him on nomination day promising things to Ugandans, and they seem to be credible, genuine, and it seems they come from his heart. For a general who was handpicked by the army commander to say he doesn't respect the decision of Ugandans as a whole. If they decide to elect Mao or Chagulanyi, is treason itself. And if I was the president, I would speak about it. I would not let the army commander be the one to speak. Who is the army commander? The army commander is supposed to obey the Army Act made by Parliament. Parliament is made by representatives of the people. So those who are not prepared to obey the decision of the people, to obey when Chagulanyi is elected president or Mao, to say he is the people's choice, are not fit to be in power. And that's why I am saying, please, let's go back to the 1995 Constitution, and there must be change, because President Museveni and the people who support him, like Data General and the Army Commander, saying ideology. Are they ideologists? When did it say that army officers shall be ideologists of Uganda?
Okay, Prof, we have less than 6 minutes to close our today's show until when we meet again. These are key things I want to hear from you.
The what?
Key things I want to hear from you. First of all, precisely, Prof, you managed and had the president. You have had at least 3 or thereabout presidential petitions. How much time do you think is worth hearing such a petition, in your view?
Under the present circumstances, under the NRM, the way we are governed, it's a waste of time.
Good.
It's a waste of time to petition. It's a waste of time, even these days, to go to court. When the judiciary itself,
is a captive.
Last year, published that they are investigating over 100 judges and magistrates who are corrupt. My report, commissioned by the Chief Justice then, Katurebe, eventually I sent it to the Judicial Service Commission. They interviewed me. They interviewed the Chief Justice Katurebe, who said one of the judges was corrupt. He was making files disappear. The latest I can give to you, and you can publish it on media, is that everybody who was reported to me as corrupt are innocent. That's the finding of the Judicial Service Commission.
Okay, finally, tell us in less than 3 or so minutes, Prof, what, in your view, I now want to also add some other title onto you as a Gilaf. Like, yeah, you are not bad, but I would want also to allow me nickname you a Gilaf, because it's tall and can also, for some reason, see beyond where rabbits also see. So those of us who are rabbits and you're a Gilaf, best case scenario in the coming elections and the worst case scenario in the coming elections, and then we close it.
From what I hear, we have 10, 12 candidates. It's not wrong itself. Everybody is entitled to stand for election, which is constitutional. But realistically, there are 2 real candidates. That's the incumbent president and the presidential candidate, Chagulanyi, sometimes known as Bobi Wine. Why do I say that? Looking at the history of Uganda, you see President Museveni says, don't be tribal. But his whole government, the philosophy of his work is tribal. If you look at the major sources, departments, ministries, they are dominated by one group. Those are my people from the Western region. So it takes a thief to know one. It takes a tribalist to know that the others are being tribalistic. I don't want to go further in that one because I have written about it.
Yeah, so in a minute.
But having said, it's 2 minutes you have given me, the only person who is capable of taking us back to 1995, the good old days of governance when the president was a servant of the people of Uganda, in my opinion, is Shagulanyi.
That's the best case scenario. Finally, the worst case scenario in the event that it hasn't.
The worst scenario is if the NRM party, which pretends to be a party but is not, were to be returned to power.
Good. That is the old bird's view, giving us insights of both best and worst case scenarios. But I do not know whether I am allowed to continue calling you the giraffe also in addition to the old bird.
You call me whatever you want. I don't mind. Many
see,
people who have interviewed me before, they are much younger. I could be their grandfather. They called me uncle.
Great.
Yes, I prefer the word uncle than all those things you have said.
Okay, sir. Okay, Uncle retired justice.
Uncle Kanyeihamba.
Kanyeihamba. Thanks, viewers. We'll bring him back to you. And he has given us his time. Next time, I'm sure it's going to be in December, no doubt. And we're praying to God that he continues keeping him for us as a nation, as a generation, as a continent, and as a world. May God bless one and bless all of us.
Can I say something you finish?
Please.
Admirers of mine, I will not mention them, but you find them in the book, have compiled a book about my life. A small book, and they called it Kanyeihamba, The Incredible.
Yes.
It will be available at Christmas.
Oh.
I ask those who are able, and if you are not, we have, although it is about 30 pages, rather 300 pages, the compilers have sacrificed and priced it at 40,000 shillings. It should be more in ordinary currency. They are subsidized, so as many people as possible they can buy it.
Okay.
It will be available in the bookshops before Christmas. With my picture there, you will not misunderstand it. And my friends, please don't be surprised. Some of my old friends who are there is President Museveni and the Kabaka of Uganda.
Okay, when we would want to say goodbye to all our viewers and keep following the Alternative Uganda social media page on Facebook. We will continue bringing the old man to all of us, the uncle Kanyeihamba, to all of you viewers. May you be blessed, and please keep our hope alive. Thank you.
I repeat the same prayer.